like scary movies?
I'm getting ready to watch a video.
You making popcorn? What's your favorite?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Hi everybody, I'm George, and this is the Best Little Horror House in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest at least. And today's guest has been helping us stare into the void with their amazing artwork, which has an eye for intricate detail in addition to the assortment of other eyes on display. Please welcome Jonathan La Mantia. Welcome.
Hello.
Very excited to have you here, Jonathan. Big fan of your work, which is, of course, an incredible display of horror. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with horror?
I
know, big question.
It's gonna be like this the whole time. Yeah, I mean, I've horror and I go back as long as I can remember. I've always been a fan of horror as a genre, and with movies, I came into media in general kind of later as a kid, because growing up, we didn't have television, and I moved around a lot, and it wasn't until I was a little, like a little older kid, and like I think a lot of folks, like the elder millennials, have this like far-reaching back memory of their childhood and how it relates to media and the stuff that they grew up with. And I had like a lot of nature and other things, and then I got enthralled by the stuff that got to me still too early as a kid. HBO's Tales from the Crypt, which was being syndicated on Fox, and going to the video store when we moved to a place that had video stores and had a big horror selection, and Night of the Demons, to tie a background, was one of the first horror movies that I vividly remember seeing, which is why I remember it so fondly. And other people may have different memories of this movie. And I watched it this afternoon, and it's very different now. I still love it though. But yeah, I mean, my horror, and it comes from a place of body horror, like with my health issues, and a lot of that still sense of movement and trying to find a sense of self in the world. And so that's the artsy answer of that. But I also have this really deep connection to cheese horror and shoestring budget horror and the EC comics as told through filmmakers of the 80s and this sort of comic book mentality of horror. So it's like I'm taking myself really overly seriously, but at the same time there's this voice in my head saying, shut up, we don't have the budget for this. Don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah, you got to have that balance for sure.
It's always fun working with that.
I mean, between Night of the Demons, which is it's packed full of jokes. You talked about Tales from the Crypt, which is, of course, hysterical still to this day, in my opinion. Do you like movies to have sort of that comic vibe to them? Do you like your horror and maybe not take itself so seriously?
I mean, it really depends on the mood I'm in. I do appreciate all of it. I think everything has a place, especially in horror. Like, horror's in a weird spot. Like always, it's always being like needed in every era, and we always sort of forget that it's always here for us. Right. There's always horror in the world, but for some reason people are like, it needs to be elevated, like constantly. It's like no, horror needs to be elevated. Like comic books, they always need to be elevated. It's like, yeah, but they're always elevated, and they're always lowbrow, and they're always in the middle. And if you are in the right spot at the right time, you can find other people, because horror is both isolationist and a group project. And with filmmaking, it's as collaborative as you're able to make it. And Night of the Demons is a great representation of something that's definitely a collaborative thing. Or work. I mean, like when you got in touch, I saw the list of all of the other movies that I would have picked. Return of the Living Dead. I think Night of the Demons is definitely something that would pair well with Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Because that's one of my favorites. Night of the Demons is one of my favorites simply because it got to me first. And then it opened the door to like, hey, horror is, when you're building a construct in your mind as a child of what horror is, and it's got a bunch of dialogue that doesn't really sink in as a kid, so you don't really register how bad it is. And the effects are really visceral and really effective, and the camera work is really, it's good for what it is.
Yeah.
And it's stuff it's really broad strokes working. And so as a kid, it's really effective. It is like going through a haunted house. And so I really loved that. And that's what gravitated me towards working in haunted houses as a kid, as a teenager. And so I got into special makeup effects and working in haunted houses when I was living in Las Vegas as a teenager. And Night of the Demons is totally a haunted house movie.
Oh yeah.
It's like if you can't take it too seriously. It's a party atmosphere movie. You have to sort of check your brain at the door.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes right back to the original name for it, Halloween Party. So
Right.
The movie we are talking about today, as we've sort of been alluding to, is 1988's Night of the Demons, directed by Kevin Tenney and written by Joe Augustin. Joe is a Philly guy himself and said in interviews that he'd sort of crashed and burned in LA after a few production coordinator jobs, including one for the much beloved by me, Hard Rock Zombies. So a double connection for him. But he returned to Philly to recuperate, and taking note of the wide-open market for low-budget horror, thanks to the booming video market, wrote 2 scripts, one called Lilith and one called Halloween Party, which would go on to become Night of the Demons, as we said, though it kept the name Halloween Party all the way through the cast and crew screening. He said basically Mustafa Akkad of Halloween fame threatened them with a lawsuit if they didn't change it, and even though it's hard to justify copyright when it's the name of a holiday, the producers didn't want to deal with it, so they agreed. And then the problem now became that the alternate title was Demon Boogie, which horrified.
I watched it this morning, and then I watched one of the commentary tracks, and I love how Kevin Tenney's like, so they gave me a couple of name options, and one was Demon Boogie. I was like, no, anything but that. So then he goes home and comes up with like 50 different names, and then they go to a mall, and they're like, which movie would you rather see, to a bunch of kids? And Demon Knight was one of those names that kept coming up. Or Night of the Demons. Demon Knight's a great one, though.
Demon Knight is really good. Honestly, there's something to Demon Boogie, in my opinion.
I think Demon Boogie is something that would come out now.
Yeah.
It's definitely, there's a movie that I don't think anybody's ever going to be able to see called Boogeyman Pop.
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Look it up if you get a chance to watch it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, anything short of Boogie Nights with Boogie in the name is going to have a hard time as a horror movie. But honestly, it is a title that does sort of, Night of the Demons is sort of a bait and switch. It's very much the movie that you get.
Mm-hmm.
There are a bunch of demons. It's at night.
Yeah.
But
tick, tick.
Yeah, but Demon Boogie is like, yeah, this is actually more accurate.
They dance a lot.
It matches the tone.
Yeah.
As a kid coming into it, when it's sort of fueling that imagination, it's a lot easier for me to come back and be like, this is the best movie ever. As an adult, it's a harder movie for me to sell. But it's still like I can't help but have that in the back of my mind. Like, this is still a great movie for me and my experiences.
Yeah.
I can totally understand if people don't like it, though. But I love that, like, whenever I talk to people who do love it, it's like, yeah, that's great. It's legitimately great for those reasons.
Definitely. When Joe discussed writing this, he said he wasn't really into the realism of slashers with, like, a knife, but did like the way it gathered a bunch of teens in one spot to terrorize. So he took that and folded it into the supernatural demon stuff that he preferred because of their facilitation of an anything goes atmosphere. And I think that makes a lot of sense. It is kind of an interesting way to, trap them in the haunted house, but not be limited necessarily by the structure of a ghost. And they're very clear that it's not ghosts, that it's demons. And it does sort of open it up to be like, well, that's what demons do. They have all kinds of powers, you know?
And it's sort of, there's a really interesting logic to the movie. And it's one that it rewards you with repeated viewings throughout the eras when you have a different understanding of things. And it's something that you listen to the commentary tracks, you read about the production, and like learning about how, and for me, it's got great behind the scenes, the documentary that's on there.
Mm-hmm.
So I have 2 copies of it, and the Screen Factory Blu-ray that came out, I think 10 years ago now. And it is the thing that I love about the format, which is it's basically a film stool on a disc, and it's just people talking about what it is. Kenny gets into like the cameras that he was using, really like technical, but also, personal stuff. Steve Johnson talking about how his cocaine, how much cocaine he was doing.
He's so funny in this commentary. He made me laugh so much.
It's a lot of fun. And Johnson's, honestly, if it weren't for him trying to prove himself in this movie, I don't think I'd love the movie nearly as much, because that's, as somebody that was gravitating towards special effects, Steve Johnson's work on this it's his first film as a solo effects artist with his first studio.
Right.
And he's coming off of huge budget movies. He just got fired by Michael Jackson, and he's trying to prove himself. So he's doing a lot of cocaine.
It's a big combo.
It all lines up, and it's the 80s, and it's just and you can really tell. And he's also honestly, if you haven't watched it yet, I'm pretty sure you have. He's one of the best things about the Fright Night commentary track.
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And it's just any time you're like, this guy must have been can I swear?
Yes.
This guy must have been a fucking nightmare to know. And I'm not sure I'd ever want to meet him and work with him ever. Mm-hmm. But he's a joy to listen to, and he's a storyteller by trade. And it's really fascinating to hear, because he remembers a lot of it, which is really amazing.
Surprising considering the amount of drug use that he says was happening.
And just the fact that he was doing so much. And he's got 2 books, which also, I mean, it's a very storied production on a lot of his material.
Yeah.
But it shows. That's the thing. Like, as an artist now, I came into illustration later, but there's this sense of, art when you see it, even if it's not what other people would say, oh, that's art. Mm-hmm. But the thing about Night of the Demons that makes it really special is it takes a long fucking time to get to Danny Demon.
Yeah. It's like 45 minutes, like a full 45.
And it's like, it's grueling if you're not really into it. And I can watch it, I'm like, this is fun. And I know that other people, like, it rewards a party atmosphere. If you're in a theater with a bunch of fans, it's the best thing ever. I watched it in the theater like 10 years ago. Linnea Quigley was there, and it was so much fun. And I hadn't seen it in years. And a friend of mine who had never seen it, we were like, oh, that was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. I'm like, yeah. And then I was like, watching it again later. This is really good. It's really a lot better with people.
Uh-huh. Well, I do think the commentaries do do benefit it in that way. And especially, you mentioned that there are multiple commentaries on the disc. Yeah. You definitely picked the best one, in my opinion. That was the juicy one. Lots of fun really banter between the actors there. So really, really fun one. The script had been shopped around quite a bit, but Joe was eager to have some control over it, and he held out until producer Walter Justin agreed Joe could produce as well. And Walter had been a commodities broker, and a guy who Kevin Tenney went to USC with left the film industry and worked under him. So when Walter got sick of working in commodities, because of course he did, he's working in commodities, what does that even mean?
I'm sure a lot of cocaine was also involved.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. But he was like, hey, the film industry, if you ever see a script that's worthwhile, send it my way. This guy had read Kevin's script for Witchboard, then named Ouija, said I know just the one, and the partnership was formed. And he said that they cold called people much like commodities brokers would to raise money for Night of the Demons, and had around 12,000 investors. And they compared it to an early Kickstarter almost, which I found kind of interesting.
Yeah, and that technique, like, it is something that at the time, like, there have been films that did that, but if you'll notice on the movie at the end, there's a very it's a much longer credit sequence than your average horror movie, and the special thanks is like 2 minutes long, and it's just a slow crawl.
Yeah.
And I was watching it, the first time around, I was like, it had been a while, and I don't think I'd ever noticed that. And when they were talking about how they were cold calling people, and you can probably bet those were their top investors, like, hey, like a Kickstarter, you'll get your name on the credits.
Yeah.
And it is something that is really interesting with this film in general, because it's this sort of like, it is a group project in that sense. It is a collaborative effort. It's something that really was made special because of the kind of production that it had. It wasn't as insulated as other horror movies at the time, which would be just, like a couple of guys with deep pockets that then had a lot of say over the one thing.
Right.
So that, in a sense, and I don't want to get ahead of what you're wanting to talk about, but the production itself and the way that they wrote the script is it is fascinating, and it makes the film a little bit more special in that respect for me than other of its contemporaries.
Yeah, I do find it to be pretty interesting. I think I know what you're talking about in terms of like the location, sort of adjusting the script and everything. I do think that is pretty fascinating. We'll talk. I want to talk about the location sort of at large, so we'll definitely get to that. But one of Joe's friends was supposed to direct, but then that guy got his own script picked up by New Line, and he said, "Well, obviously, I'd rather work on my own material here." So now Walter and Jeff Jeffrey, supervising producer and fascinating name choice, we're like, "Fuck it, we're calling in Kevin."
Jeffrey's Jeff.
Yeah. Joe didn't love this, not because they didn't get along, but because he did have some conflicting ideas about the direction of the movie, and now here they are making it 3 against 1 by bringing in their buddy Kevin. Understandable why that might make someone bristle, even if they're like, well, I like the guy, but it's definitely loaded in one direction here. Some of the changes along the way did make it more campy compared to the initial script. Joe talked about specifically there being a lot more drug use, since Max, dressed as a doctor, had looted his actual father's prescriptions. Another change is Max was initially part of a gay couple based on some of Joe's friends, but somewhere along the way his boyfriend became Franny instead. But to help keep egos soothed, they always reached out to Joe about ways to rewrite it so it didn't feel like they were taking it from under him. And I think that is also an interesting way that this differentiates itself from a lot of movies, even in just their willingness to have Joe on set to work with them in adjusting the script when necessary, instead of just saying like, Kevin's going to make the decisions and say, here's what it's going to be now. I think that that's a real like olive branch in terms of like respecting the writer as a force in this creative process.
Right. And honestly, as much as I am critical now of the dialogue, there is something to be said for the fact that like, it is a weirdly diverse movie.
Very, yeah.
And knowing that like he was trying to have representation of gay characters in the onset. There's a black character that makes it all the way through. I mean, also, you spoiler alert for the ending. I guess I did want to talk. There's no way to talk about this movie without talking about the ending, because it's really important to talk about the ending of this movie.
For sure.
But it is a movie that, for its time, and one of the reasons why I still love it for all of its. I mean, I still genuinely love it, and like when you reached out, you're like, which movies? It was 2 movies right away that I wanted to talk about, and this is always going to be the first one that comes up in my mind. And one of the reasons is, like, it may not age the best, but it also ages in a way that's really unique of movies of that era that, in this, that have the same kind of budget. And, like the filmmakers didn't expect it for it to like have as much longevity as it does, but it does because they were writing it in a way that I don't think other people were writing movies at the time. Like they talk about in the commentary about the hairstylings, like it's not trapped by the era, with few exceptions of dialogue, and it ends up being pretty. They say it does end up being kind of timeless in that respect. Like it feels like a movie that could have been made 5 years ago, like you're going to have critiques about any movie's dialogue, but the effects still hold up. The shots still hold up. And the diversity of cast is like, there's still something to be said for that. And we're still fucking up in that respect.
Absolutely. It was really fascinating to me because he talked about specifically having a goal of having a cross section of people along with the location card that reads a few miles from here to set it up at the beginning to give it the impression that it could be anywhere, any small town. And I think that he does a really good job of accomplishing that. And they talked in the commentaries about it sort of in order to meet union standards. They were like, oh, well, it's also important that we have a diverse cast in that regard. But, like, good. It just meant we have, like, a lovely variety of people in the cast. And so it worked, it turns out.
And, like, they're, like, in true horror movie fashion, after a while, you're like, when are all of these people going to die? I'm tired of listening to them try to deliver lines. And they're all really, they're all good. I do appreciate where they're at in their careers. And they're honestly, they're what's great about horror movie conventions, like horror conventions and horror fandom, because they're everybody that's involved in the film is like, they love, interacting with the fans.
Right.
They love the fact that they still have a place in fandom. And it's a movie that really is a fun movie to have around, you know, and not in the same way that other movies that have bigger fandoms and larger popularities, they're just not as fun to watch. Like there may be better movies, but I can't recommend. It's like, well, if you're like not in the mood, like watch this movie. It's it's grueling, but like it is maybe not the same caliber as Evil Dead, but it's still a lot of fun.
Absolutely. And I think that the fact that I was able to watch this movie 5 times in preparation for this, between the first watch of just like vibe watch, then 3 commentaries, and then a notes watch. And it's like I was still enjoying myself on the 5th watch in 2 weeks. Like it really works.
Had you seen it before?
I hadn't, no.
Oh man, that's great. That's great. Did you like it?
I really liked it.
I guess that's the thing. Is that, like if you watch a movie 5 times in a row, and it is a movie, it's like there's another podcast called Thrash It Out, and Brian Latendry is one of the hosts, and he has a thing, the Latendry 3. You watch something or listen to something 3 times and make your decision off of that. Mm-hmm. And it's a movie that if you don't like it the first time, try seeing how it feels on the 3rd time.
Right. And especially if you can switch up the environment, like you said, if you can watch it with people or something.
Right. And it helps if you watch it when you're like, say, 11.
If you can go back to that, if you can please go back, do.
Or if you could just like show it to your kids and then see how they like it when they're adults, because that's the thing is I watched it when I was just a little bit too young and everything was amazing and it was the best. It was incredible. And now it's like, I can see all the stuff, but it's still like there's this part of me that remembers where, holy shit, that guy's arm just got ripped off. I'm like, everything in this movie is a holy shit moment.
Definitely.
As a kid. And that's the part where, everybody has got that horror movie for them that hit them a little bit too early.
Definitely. The It miniseries for me.
Yeah. Oh God. And that's a great one. And that's how do you feel about it watching it now though?
It still kind of weirds me out, especially just because like the little boy is named Georgie, and so for him to be like the first kill and such an integral part, I was like, boy, it really still just gets under my skin.
Honestly, that is one, like it's still like Night of the Demons. There's a lot of edges to spot as an adult, but like there's still stuff in there that like the character beats are just like, Jesus, this is still really good.
Yeah, definitely.
And like when it really gets into that, the dance sequence, the Bauhaus dance sequence in Night of the Demons is one of the things that like this time around watching it, it's like you can really watch Night of the Demons two separate movies. And the first part is the introduction of like, it's a comic book movie, and everything happens in this little, it's setting up characters that you don't really care about, but they're there.
Mm-hmm.
And then this music kicks in, and it's just a completely different world, this vibe. And it is like, there's something that shifts in the mood, and it carries that through for the rest of the movie. And there's other movies that are like, no, we demand consistency throughout. And it needs to be this one thing all the way through. But this is kind of neat because you've sort of written it off by this point,
right?
As a viewer, and you're like, I don't know, this is probably gonna be like this the whole way through. And then this scene kicks in, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, you totally have to readjust your sort of expectations about the path that the movie is taking. Yeah. It's really effective, and I think that the fact that it does happen kind of midway is such an interesting sort of fulcrum for it to rest on and say, like, yeah, all right, we're going over the tipping point here and strap in because now the demons have arrived.
Yeah, and that means that, like, that's one of those things that I'm sure there's a lot of, and Kenny himself, he's like, I'd rather be lucky than good.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real good testament to the production of Demons, because a lot of it is just really lucky.
Yeah.
And he is really good at setting shots up. But I also love the fact that, like, and I had forgotten that he wasn't a horror fan coming into this movie. And that is really something, because you get some stuff from it that is just like, I'm doing this as a filmmaker first, and not somebody who's really wanting to pay service to the genre, not like the writer was.
Right.
And the writer had, Joe Augustine. I'm so bad with names.
Augustine, yeah.
And you can tell he did have stuff to say. Like, there's a lot of exposition at the beginning that's talking about, like the demons and how, the difference between a house possessed with spirits and a house possessed with demons. And that also leads into how the demons interact with their physical hosts later, which, as a kid, I don't understand what the fuck's going on. And as an adult, I'm looking at this like, oh, this actually works really well.
Yeah.
Like this motivates things in a way that I hadn't really considered before. And that's how watching it at different eras with a broader understanding of things really pays off. And also just like Linnea Quigley's choices as an actor, and and the effects, and getting into the lipstick, the infamous lipstick scene,
right? That
was obviously, like, as a kid watching this, like, holy shit, what the fuck is happening? And I don't know, like, I don't want to ruin it for people if they haven't seen it.
Well, we will be going through the plot, so people will hear the spoilers anyway. So feel free to,
So there is a scene where Susan,
I think it's Suzanne.
Linnea Quigley's character is who's constantly adjusting her makeup with her compact, is then met in one of the rooms, and she's drawn a heart on her face with her lipstick.
Right.
And then it cuts to some other stuff, and then it cuts back to her, and she's sort of looking around, and it never occurred to me until this time rewatching it that this is a demon that's never had a physical body.
Right.
This is something that's now getting to take things for a test drive, and it's just like, oh, I can do things, and I'm also confined by a physical, like a physical entity, versus doing whatever the hell it was doing in the house before.
But even with that, it's interesting that it's able to manipulate things in a way that a human body could not do as well.
Right. And so the scene takes on this whole other thing with Linnea's choices of just the looking around, and it's still a very effective scene on its own. But then taking into context the idea that this is something that's never had a body, and it's just trying to see what it can do, and also she's alone in the room.
Hmm.
That's the other thing is I always remembered it as she was doing that with the other guy there, and it's just her.
Right.
So it's her and the audience then, and so this is something that's designed to just freak the audience out, and it's so effective.
Mission accomplished, baby.
And yeah, and it's just um, you know I'd be able to recommend recommend Night of the Demons solely on that scene alone.
Yeah.
Because if it was just that scene and the rest of the movie is just hot trash, it's still like this movie has the weirdest fucking scene in it.
Yeah. Hey, people
And
go, if that were the
you're
case, every single person would go, yeah, but did you see the one scene?
but did you see the one scene? Did you see the lipstick scene?
Yeah.
And if you say the lipstick scene in Night of the Demons, everybody knows what you've talked about.
That's
What
right.
you're saying in that scene. And it's still one of those things that's just, you know, you this is also a movie that's really it's paid off by watching it on the lowest quality screen possible.
You don't like seeing the little slot that it goes
no, I mean,
into?
I like it, and I think that like I didn't watch my 4K. Like I've got the Steelbook, and I didn't watch that. I'm like, I'm gonna watch it, the regular 2K, and it's a beautiful restoration of it, and it still looks really good. But I'm not like one of those people that's like it's got to be 4K UHD quality and everything. Like all the grain's got to be like give me grain, give me grit and texture.
Yeah.
And honestly, what's the best thing about the effects is the fact that they can still hold up by getting upgraded in the picture quality. Like the effects still hold up. The like slot aside, like the effect is still very effective.
Definitely, and you have to kind of look for the slot. I mean,
and it's still the stuff of like I'm sure as a kid like the gelatin mold front chest thing wasn't as apparent, and like it's all very HD,
right?
And but I will always have it burned into my mind. It's like this is a real human body.
Yeah,
this is
it looks great,
real person. And Johnson's effect is like the same thing with the hand. The hand, the severed arm gag. It's the same gelatin technique, and Johnson was doing gelatin before it got big and doing polyurethane. And he was using a lot of techniques that would become famous later,
right?
Mostly because he was doing them. But it's a lot of stuff that was really inventive at the time, but also like it didn't have the same kind of shelf life. So you had to do the shot like right away. And
I mean, it looks so great though. He talked about working with Rick on Videodrome and sort of incorporating those Videodrome effects into this movie, and like it totally shows and it totally works. I recently rewatched Videodrome in 4K, and as you were sort of talking about the way it can be improved by that visual fidelity, the fact that it is so realistic looking still in 4K really enhances the sort of message of the movie in terms of like that blend between fiction and reality, and the way that it sort of manipulates that. So it definitely is really interesting to see that change.
Really effects heavy movies of that time especially are really tough when they're getting a resolution update, because sometimes there's just stuff that like, well, there's the grain of the film. We can hide an effect. We don't need to worry about the blending quite as much.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've ever seen a movie that Steve Johnson worked on that he was like running point that ages poorly in terms of the effects.
Sure.
Because all of the effects that he worked on, he was so meticulous, and it was just. Like there may be some stuff like the Fright Night, the stationary mouth thing. That's just like, well, that's probably not what I do now, but it was just because of time, and it's just like there's still so much fun to watch his work, and that's that thing of like when you see another artist who's got something to prove, that's the shit that lasts. And I mean, I think everybody on this movie did have something to prove. The actors, they all talk about how, like most of them were, like they were just not working, like in Hollywood. Like
youthful cast
who was just like this is going to be it for me. Like I'm gonna I like I said, I'm terrible with names, but the guy that plays Roger,
Alvin Alexis, yes,
Alvin Alexis, and he's got really a great. I wish he was in the commentary, honestly. But he talks about like how he was like he had a plane ticket home, and then his agent calls. He's like, "So we've got this script that you would like you to come in for," and he's like, "Okay."
Yeah, he had to literally decide if he believed in himself enough to go for it or not. Because if he didn't get the role, he would literally be on the street.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, what sucks is like I think and a similar story with the actor who's in Return of the Living Dead, who was effectively homeless while he was shooting that. And there's this is the part where I wish I would have like had notes in front of me, but the fact that you've got everybody that in there that like this has to work, and it's really an inventive thing of, I mean, every movie has to work for everybody. You know, it's like, there's, especially like when you've got a budget, when you've got people investing, like it's going to break somebody.
Definitely. And you talked about the fact that they kind of had to be lucky rather than good. And I think that that definitely happened with casting. You know, it was pilot season, so even unknowns were kind of reluctant to commit to a foul-mouthed, gory horror flick. Plus, while they were casting, Witchboard hadn't come out yet, so nobody knew that they had a success around the corner. And so it did sort of have to come in a little piecemeal. You know, Joe loved Linnea as trash in Return of the Living Dead, so they called her in based on that to play Suzanne. Kathy Podwell, who plays Judy, was still waitressing. She said that she was able to quit her waitressing job because of this movie. Amelia Kincaid, who plays head demon Angela, she was at the time a dancer, both in the stripping capacity and also in like Stray Cats videos is one of the famous things that she was in. She was encouraged by her aunt, Rue McClanahan from the Golden Girls.
Yeah. Which I didn't know until I was watching the behind the scenes docs. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, that's a fun connection. And she encouraged her to get into acting. And this was huge for her casting because they did really need a dancer for that crucial scene that we talked about. And she would wind up choreographing her own dance. And the idea of like someone being so perfect for the role, you know, Amelia Kincaid really just absolutely nails it as Angela. I think she really is perfect for it. And for her to have sort of put her own dance on screen, I think is really interesting because it's so much more of the like character's emotional expression instead of just someone being like, here's what we want you to do, here's what'll look good on screen. It actually is the character emoting. Yeah,
no, absolutely. It's the difference between having an onset, and I don't think they could have afforded an onset choreographer anyway. And that is something that like everybody brought their art to the table for this movie, and it does, you know, in its way, it all works really well. I mean, down to the credit sequence, we haven't even talked about the credit sequence yet, and that's something that is really special and separates it out from some other movies because it's such a weird way to start the movie, and it sets the tone. And I love knowing that Kenny didn't want it initially, mostly for budgetary reasons, but it was something that people had to kind of convince him that like this would be a fun, like a really good way to start the movie. And I agree. It sets a tone that I don't think, like I said, it's a very comic book movie. It's a very EC Tales from the Crypt movie. Like as a Tales from the Crypt story, it would fit perfectly in that library.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so much like it's got EC comic style bookends with the old man and
very grim ones.
Yeah, no, and it's so good and it's so unnecessary. Like it doesn't need to be in the movie at all. And that's what's so great about it is that it's stuff that's like, well, I don't want, like we've told the story, but it's a lot more fun with a bookend in that capacity. Like you've got this old man that's introduced at the beginning and he's just an asshole and you know, and then he gets his comeuppance later, and you find out he's more than just an asshole. He's a child murdering asshole, and it's very much the story does make a point to have a moral center. Yeah, like it's got a very specific moral compass to it. The girl who's been working at the shelter, the homeless shelter, and like who's been doing volunteer work, she survives.
Yeah.
The preacher's son survives. Like it's it's a little bit sort of cheesy, but they also know this is a cheesy movie.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
And it's something that it is self-aware enough, which is great, but it's also not. It's not afraid to sort of swing for the fences as far as like what it thinks is like a statement about like horror.
Definitely. It was groundbreaking in a few ways. As we talked about, the character of Roger is a black man who not only didn't die right away, but was in fact a survivor and a hero. It does have a score that was on the sort of edge of synth rock. The makeup and everything, the gore pushed people's boundaries. It also featured heavy sexuality, as we talked about. But these boundary pushes got a very positive reaction with great reviews as early as the first test screenings. We also talked about specifically how the makeup is done by Steve Johnson. A few of his other jobs were like Ghostbusters, Big Trouble in Little China, as you mentioned, some of the other big budget ones. And he had been fired from this Michael Jackson job, so he's like, oh fuck, I need something to pay for this studio and my now refinanced car. And so between wanting to establish the studio name and keep a roof over his head, he sort of met this low budget movie halfway. As you mentioned, this sort of insistence of proving himself, the rage that he said, oh, we don't have the budget and time to do what I want. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. I'm going to stay up all night sculpting individual pores. I respect the spike drive.
This is not Ghostbusters.
Right. And he said he knew never to say that again to me.
Oh, I love that. And that for me, like that's the fact that they're able to hang out in the with and do a commentary together. Like they're not in separate studios. They're not, like whatever. They're just hanging out in the room with some of the cast, and they're just having a good time talking about it. Like, it was a month. It was a short shoot, and then the lead up, you've got a bunch of time in your studio working on all these effects, and then on the day everything goes, everything is going to have to be different based on the setups.
Yeah.
And I love hearing stories like that. It is a lot of fun to listen to them.
Definitely. I also thought that him and Linnea talking about their relationship in the behind the scenes stuff was very cute. They talked about how people usually close their eyes in the effects chair, but she just kept looking at him while he was so close, and he was like, oh my God, does she like me? And basically they both said it was very high school-esque. They did start dating after the shoot, and he proposed to her when she emerged from Freddy while shooting Nightmare 4. And if that's not romance, I don't know what it is.
It's so romantic. And they lived happily ever after for 2 more years.
That's exactly right.
It's a Hollywood ending.
Yeah. It was funny that the other crew members were like, that's pretty good. Like,
yeah. It's like, they're kind of goading him. It's like, well, yeah, 2 years, 4 years, like they were dating for 2 years. And in Hollywood terms, that's like forever.
Pretty good.
Especially in the time, I think. And I think for the era that they were both in.
The nebula of drugs he's in.
Just the fact that Steve was working as much as he was. Yeah. And Linnea was working a lot. But, this is still after Return and Night of the Demons. And so she was still getting a lot of work. But like, I don't know how you'd have time as far as Steve goes, like to have a life.
Yeah, honestly. To maintain a relationship takes work.
Yeah, really. And I don't want to see. Yeah, I don't know anything about that, but it is really. It's always really like funny and sad when it's like, yeah, and then we were married for 2 years.
Yeah.
Aww.
Yep. They were a handsome couple, though. I must give them that.
They were, yeah. I mean, Johnson, like they're both very good-looking people.
For sure. They also talked about, definitely the makeup department was this drug central, but the grip team made a nightclub in the grip truck, hooked up blenders for margs and a disco ball. I loved Hal laughing and saying, I got an education in the makeup room. Nitrous oxide. It ain't just for whipped cream anymore.
And Johnson brought in a bunch of help for the end sequence, and like I said, I am terrible with names, but one of the people that he brought in ended up getting like 3 Oscars for their work on the Lord of the Rings series.
Wow.
So like he had, and like I said, like Johnson's been working in effects forever. And at the time, like they were pulling in. That was also like the golden era of special effects. Like you just had a lot of people who were hungry for work and wanted to make a name for themselves. And the sad thing is that this guy didn't actually get credited on the film. But it's still something that, like, knowing for like how special effects in those movies work, it is an all hands on deck sort of situation. You need as many people as you can drag in and pay them in pizza and beer and drugs.
It's just like moving, baby. It's just like moving.
100%.
The difficulties in casting, though, meant that they did have a lot of prep time and that they had the house really early, which was helpful. They got to know what lenses he wanted and how to shoot it instead of guessing on the day. Specifically, he talked about using a lot of long lenses in the setup to make everything look flat, then switch to short lenses in the house to give it a deeper look and fill it with all those nooks and crannies. Like we said, they also enlisted Joe at this time to come in and sort of adjust the script in advance to suit the environment instead of trying to make impossible things happen, like a moat being around the building. They said, okay, we have a little bit of wall, so instead it will be a wall built over this underground river. And they said, well, if that's the way it works, work with what you have that will look really good for production value instead of being like, no, we're going to make the impossible happen. And,
some of my other favorite commentary tracks, I'll watch anything that Guillermo del Toro does. And like, he just loves talking about movies, and the amount of information you can get out of a Del Toro commentary track is so invaluable if you're interested in filmmaking. Even as somebody who's just a fan, you get a sense of, and it's the same thing with Night of the Demons, you just get a sense of like how it's important to be flexible on a production. If you don't have a budget, and they did not have a budget, like $1 million may sound like a lot. It is, I mean, especially not now in film terms, but back then it was still not a lot.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were able to find this beautiful house to shoot in, and it's like, okay, whatever you have in the script, throw out whatever you need and write around these rooms, around this house. And that, honestly, that's the best advice ever for aspiring filmmakers, because it's like, find a great location and figure out what you could do with that, because it's so much better than having a great idea that will never be able to be shot because you can't find a location to fit your budget, because the chances of you finding that perfect thing are very small.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen Zero Effect?
Yeah.
It's that. If you're looking for something specific, it's very hard to find. But if you just go looking for something, you're bound to find it.
Boom. That's right.
And that's the mentality. You have to have the Daryl Zero mentality for
that's
filmmaking.
Right. That's exactly right.
That's the Night of the Demons mentality, because they had this beautiful location that was owned by Ralph's at the time.
That's right. Yeah, it was near USC. They said Ralph's owned it already, but just hadn't started the process of tearing it down because it was on the historic register. So they were like, we need to get something out of this house. Fine, we'll rent it to you.
Yeah.
It has since become a Ralph's, so it is no longer there. But since then, Ralph's had been
like
gripping it.
The cemetery in Return of the Living Dead. You can just visit it as condos.
Right. Even more frightening in many ways.
Yeah.
You have to also credit Dave Lewis, the DP, and Ken Eichley, the production designer, who definitely killed it, making the house look good. As you mentioned, they used other parts of the house for the other sets. Jay's room is a piece of Hull House. They used it for dressing rooms. They really got their money's worth when they were like, this is the house. Here's where we're putting the budget.
Yeah. It really speaks to the level of just like this house is the movie. And that's another thing, like the special effects, like this is a thing that no other movie of that time has. Like, there are some great set pieces in other movies, but they're made special by the actors or the script or whatever. But like this is the house. Like the house is another part of the cast.
Absolutely. It's totally atmospheric as well. People talked about just feeling like spooky stuff happened. Billy Gallo, who played Sal, was smoking on the porch between shots, and he said an old lady passed by in slow-mo and said, "Get out now." And then Kevin joked, turns out she just didn't like Italians, which got me good.
Yeah. My favorite thing is Hal, the guy that plays Stooge,
right?
Was in the bathroom, and it was like nobody was around, and he heard something outside, and he goes in the hallway, and there's nobody there. And he goes back in, and he's starting to get really freaked out. And he keeps hearing this noise, and he's just like really scared. And then he looks down, and he realizes there's a board that goes all the way through, and it's creaking outside, and he was stepping on this board, scaring the shit out of himself.
Literally.
And it's that stuff like when you're just like, strung out perhaps on actual drugs, or just tired from hours in the makeup chair. His makeup was like 11 hours.
Yeah.
And
miserable.
And, even as a young person, you're like, just exhausting hours and just grueling. So, yeah, and then you're in this literal haunted house, and shit's going to be kind of creepy after a while. Doesn't matter how many disco balls the grip unit puts up. It's still kind of unnerving to work there.
Absolutely. And everybody mentioned it being a fun but exhausting shoot. It's a tight schedule with a lot of night shots. You have to have a ton of different versions of costumes that you're constantly getting in and out of so that they can get more and more beat up. There's a lot of smoke that's happening. A lot of smoke that's happening.
The good stuff.
That's
good
right.
Smoke.
They laughed and said you can't even legally use that smoke anymore. They also told a funny story about Philip Tanzini responding to "Is the room smoky enough?" by sticking his finger up his nose and pulling it out bright blue from the smoke powder.
And it is really good smoke, though. You got to give him credit for that. And it is terrifying to think of how toxic that shit is.
The blue cookie, they called it.
Oh God. But yeah, that is like old Hollywood style stuff. It's like toxic snowflakes, or just like the shit that would, like, you're inhaling blue, whatever it's made out of. Mm-hmm. But it does look really good.
Definitely. And you also mentioned how miserable the makeup was, half the day in the chair, and then you still had to go act, and then also take an hour and a half to get it off. So to get around this time constraint, what they do is they shoot half a scene, send someone to go get makeup done, then shoot another scene that didn't require makeup, then go back and shoot the other half now that the makeup for the first person was done, then go back and film the second half of scene B. So the shot breakdown and shooting schedule had to be really intricate and really well balanced in terms of, like, the fact that they were able to go back and adjust some things and do, like, some reshots is honestly kind of incredible in terms of the efficacy of and efficiency that they're operating at.
And this is they say a 24-day shoot.
Right. That's nothing.
Like plus 2 days of pickups. And for the fact that they got it done is no small feat.
No. And
the fact that it's a lot of fun to watch, and it's coherent. Like, there's movies that have way more time, way more budget, and they're not as efficient in their filmmaking on it. And it is, I think, a testament to the fact that, like, Tenney knew what he wanted to get out of these scenes ahead of time, and he really worked, and he worked with Joe on the script, and they made it as tight as possible. And it is, it does reward itself for being that, like, everybody knows, what they're doing, but it's also flexible enough to know how to change in the moment.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy for movies like this to fall apart.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, really easy.
Oh yeah, I've seen many that do. But the movie did do very well despite the regional openings and the time of year. For example, it opened in the New York City area Thanksgiving weekend with 93 screens against Bill Murray's Scrooged, and it was still getting numbers that looked like nationwide rollouts, so it was doing well. In discussing this, there was a big emphasis on the importance of salesmanship. They said it doesn't matter how good the movie looks if nobody sees it. And also they talked about the importance of delivering on the poster. That if you see the Night of the Demons poster and you say, that looks like a movie I'll like, and then you go watch Night of the Demons, you will like that movie.
It's such a good poster. And it is, like the box art, the VHS box art, the ad, I don't think I ever saw the ad campaigns for it, but the poster and the VHS box, they're exactly what you get from the movie.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a movie that you're like, holy shit, this movie's amazing. And then you watch it like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Ron Howard's a lot of fun to watch, but this is not what I was expecting.
Yeah, absolutely. So many of those cheapo exploitation movies, like, made their bread and butter was kind of the bait and switch of having an awesome poster or an awesome
love
box.
a good bait and switch with posters. Like, I'm all about that. Like, I have a lot of guilty pleasures. I mean, they're not even guilty pleasures. I love these movies, and I love the fact that they had the tenacity to just be like, it's Ed Wood. Well, we've got a poster. Now we just need a movie.
But it can't be all the time. We need to have our Night of the Demons is.
It is important to actually balance that out with some movie that actually makes sense for that.
Yeah.
My favorite story from this was when they were going through Detroit to do the release, and they were working with the person that was putting together the theatrical run for them in Detroit, and they're talking about the budget. And the guy's like, okay, how much money do you want to spend? He's like, 80,000. He's like, all right, we'll put you, I think it was like 14 theaters or something like that. He's like, I'll put you in 14 theaters. But if you don't spend what you say you're going to spend, I'm going to break your kneecaps. It's like,
it's serious business.
Spend all your money.
Absolutely. But the thing is that it did have that independent spirit, and there were sort of these independent theaters that they're working with. They talk about the ones in Detroit, one specifically, like, looked at the poster, then made their own effects to create a dummy lookalike Angela and stuck that in the ticket booth with the actual taker. Like, that's awesome.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. And that's the thing. It's like, and it is a movie that rewards that creativity. Like, you can't really do that. I mean, you can. Like, there are a lot of movies that, like, and especially at the time of video stores, you got people who are like, this is really a lot of fun, and I want to sell it as best as I can to get people in the theater, or to get, I mean, at the time it was just the theatrical run, but it's like, I love that shit. It's so good.
Hell yeah. As far as budget, Kevin said, they said it was 1.2, but I don't feel like I had 1.2 to work with. Somewhere between 850 and $1 million.
I'm sure it was somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. And it made 3.1 domestically before also seeing success on the home video market. So it earned 2 sequels and a remake ultimately. I mean, successful franchise as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, it's I'm assuming you haven't seen any of the follow-ups.
Not yet, although I did just order Night of the Demons 2, so I can watch that as well.
Okay, yeah. And Curb Your Expectations.
Oh, okay.
I do have a soft spot for the sequels. I don't know if I've actually seen the third one. That's what's frustrating. I know I've seen the second one, and it has its moments. I hated the remake.
Oh, interesting.
Tenny's a producer on that.
Right.
And he has positive things to say about it as somebody who was involved in it. But I don't remember liking any of it.
Interesting.
But I do, keeping in mind the Latendry 3, I do want to go back and revisit it, because my complaints about it were largely they had a lot of CG effects. And and it's just something that, like, I know, I think it came out in like 2011, maybe a little bit earlier. And it's, I mean, the era that this movie came out in was, like I said, it's the golden age of practical effects. It's so many good effects movies. So many bad effects movies too, like just terrible movies with amazing effects. And it's just like that for me is, and I mean, a lot of people sort of lament of like, oh, there's no good effects movies. There's still a lot of great effects movies now, but in the mid-aughts, it was rough.
Yeah.
It was really fucking rough.
I remember
it was just like, it was
I try not to, but I remember it.
Like, all right, we're going to have this horror movie, and it's going to have a lot of CG in it. And, I mean, everybody tries their best. Like, I appreciate Furlong's career and everything that he went through. And, it did have a good enough cast for me to watch, but I did not like that movie.
Oh, boy.
But I am interested in rewatching it, because I don't think that it's worth shitting on a movie like repeatedly on just one viewing.
Sure, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and it's something that, like, I do want to rewatch it. I probably won't do it anytime soon.
Well, I find it so interesting just because
it's hard to find. I'd have to pay for it. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have that much of a budget these days.
I also just find it very interesting in terms of like, even in the conversation about that era of horror remakes, of which there were many, I feel like it just doesn't come up, which does not speak well to it being good.
And that was what was fascinating. Is like Kim Tenning is like, oh yeah, I think it's like one of the best ones out of that lot, and it's slim pickings though.
Not a high bar.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I actually really enjoyed the honestly everything except for the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot.
Boy, that one is truly painful.
Oh boy. But like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, there's some fun bits in there.
Friday I think is the best one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the casting on the Texas Chainsaw, like it's a totally different movie. It's like high production value, but like I do like the cast, and I mean, like nothing hits the same visceral nerves as the original, but like Friday the 13th, it kind of doesn't matter that you're making this. You're just making it with the same title,
right?
So Night of the Demons is like in that sense, and the same thing with the sequels. And what I hadn't known until today when I was looking it up, they had intended to do a direct sequel through Kickstarter in 2013.
Wow.
There was Night of the Demons After Party. And so they ran a Kickstarter for it in 2013, and it did not do well.
Wow.
It's tough because there is a real solid core fan base for this movie, but it also shows like the budget was $250,000 on Kickstarter, and in 2013, that's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of money now. It's a lot of money forever. But this is also at the time where you couldn't trust filmmakers to make the kind of movie you wanted to see, which is a horror movie with a lot of practical effects that is faithful to what you're expecting out of this. And it's also like, does it need a sequel?
Right. Hey, it's perfect as is. That was how I felt. I like the John Wick sequels, but when I watched that first John Wick movie, I was like, that was great. I hope that they never make a sequel.
Nope. You're getting them, whether you want them or not. You're going to get a lot of them. And it's, Night of the Demons. I love franchise horror movies. I think it's great. I want people to work. That's the thing. It's like I want people to have jobs. And that is a thing that is horror franchises are good for, is it gives people work.
Definitely.
Downside is it doesn't necessarily give fans a good movie to watch. And you get lost in the weeds on like, is this a good movie? I don't know. It's just I want to make this movie because it's there, and because people have a hard time watching anything new.
There you go. Which is Mount Everest method, because it was there.
And that's the problem with horror franchises on the flip side, which as much as I like them, it also makes it harder for you to sell new ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I love this movie, I think that I am always loath to get into the pit of nostalgia, because it means that you're not focusing on the newer stuff.
Sure.
I come up with this one as like the best movie, but I know that there are better movies, and I know that there are newer movies that need more attention. But it's stuff that I love talking about because it's a movie that you can tell inspired other people to make their movies. If nothing else, they say, I can make a better movie, which is always important.
Definitely. Hey, you got to have that artistic sort of ego, right? To say like, oh, I can take this and improve.
Fuck you. I'm going to make this as close as I can to the best thing ever.
Exactly. So let's get into the actual movie. I do want to talk about this animated title sequence at the beginning, which does help set the movie apart. It was suggested by Joe and supported by Walter. As you said, Kevin was dead set against it, thinking that the money could go into the movie elsewhere. But as you said as well, I think that they're totally right to put this in. It's a little cheesy, but also features some genuinely dark images, a.k.a. a perfect encapsulation of the movie, baby!
Oh, yeah. And they're... I'm like, I want to say her name, and I don't remember it.
Kathy Zielinski.
Yes, Kathy Zielinski and she is the animator behind Ursula in The Little Mermaid, the
queen of horror for her time at Disney.
And it's so cool to have that, and watching the sequence, you're like, oh yeah, I can see that.
Definitely. You know, she talked about one of her favorites being Night on Bald Mountain, or excuse me, being Fantasia, and Night of the Bald Mountain is a definite influence on a lot of the animation there. I also think that it's fun that it features the only remnant of the previous name, which is a visible black mat around the title. It's a fun little Easter egg, I guess. I also love that they had to go to classic animation techniques in terms of she had to basically rotoscope the pumpkin that leads into the live action, which the transition is incredible from the like flame into the pumpkin into live action.
It's really good.
Yeah. So Helen, Roger, and Stooge are driving along. We do get a taste of their personalities right away, although mostly Stooge as he moons this old man with his pumpkin undies. Sal also scares this old man with a rubber rat, and now he's so furious that he rejects the help of sweet little Judy. They'll get what they deserve. Tonight, he cackles to himself, holding up a pack of razors and an apple. Judy hears from her boyfriend Jay that their Halloween plans have changed. They're no longer going to the school dance, but instead going to the, quote, weird girl in history class, Angela's party at Hull House, a local abandoned funeral home. As Judy gets changed for this, her little brother Billy pops out with the extremely memorable line, wow, bodacious boobies, sis. If they keep on growing, you'll have to hire someone just to tie your shoes.
Oh, God.
Just wonderful.
Yeah, and this is one of those, all of these parts are like, oh, I did recommend this movie, didn't I? I'm so sorry.
No. Billy is chased out, and he goes to answer the door, but there's nobody there. Or is it? And he inches closer to a dark alcove. And out pops Sal again. This guy's a damn rascal. He's scaring everybody tonight. He says, I wish I had a camera. You look like you just dropped a damn load, Junior. They're clearly not fans of each other. Sal still bribes Billy to tell him where Judy is going to a party tonight. Sal is infatuated with her. She's going on this date with Jay. Billy wants that $1, baby. Not a quarter, though, because this ain't a depression. Next, we head to the convenience store where we see Linnea Quigley's Suzanne, or at least part of her, in that she is bent over to inspect some laundry detergent to the great delight of the cashiers. And one of these cashiers here, Jim, on the left, is also the voice of the possessed teens, because he can do the voice without an added effect, which was very fun to see him do it in person on the documentary.
I'm glad you brought that up.
This store is actually completely full of behind-the-scenes folks, including the writer and director in the back by the freezers. And as Angela takes advantage of this preoccupation, she starts to fill a huge bag with stolen goods for the party. And she hustles out after giving a signal to Suzanne, who is revealed to have been in on this heist all along. Incredible stuff. She also walks out with the snappiest of one-liners with, do you guys have sour balls? And they say, why, sure we do. And then she responds, too bad, I bet you don't get many blowjobs. Linnea, this is the thing that I love about Linnea, is that it would be very easy for someone to sort of, like, not be committed to this performance, I feel like.
Oh, God, yeah.
It's so demanding of someone to just, like, not be self-conscious. And I think that Linnea is incredible at that. When she's trash, the character trash. Yeah, when she's the character trash.
I mean, honestly, in this movie, she is trash. Like, she talks about, like, she was concerned about getting movies now because she had kind of aged out of the movies that, you know, she's not old by any stretch, but in terms of casting, when you know, being a woman in Hollywood, like, like, you reach a certain age and nobody's looking at you for teenager roles.
Right.
And so she wasn't expecting to get called for a teenager role at that point, even though she's not that far off. Although she was, what, late 20s?
I think they said she was 26. So yeah, just over the edge into late 20s, but
and although I don't know how old anybody's actually supposed to be in this movie.
Right. They never really commit to it.
Like, everybody's like 28, 29 playing 18, I don't know. Which is, I think, another charming thing that helps the longevity of the movie. Everybody's like that Luke Perry thing in The Simpsons where he smiles and it's just... But they don't look great. They don't look old. But Linnea, like, she is so different than trash. And that's why I say, like, this is a great pairing with Return of the Living Dead, because if you didn't know that was the same person, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
Like, she's not at all the same character in terms of acting style, and she's not somebody that's like, I'm going to just play me in every movie.
Right.
She's committing to a role, and this is absolutely something. It's like, it's easy for people to sort of like take that sour balls line. It's like, oh, it's kind of a throwaway thing. It's it's cheesy. This, the character that she's playing is not a lot. There's not a lot to it. It's like, but there really is.
Definitely. I totally agree.
Totally derailed you.
No. Hey, that's what this is all about. This is what we're here to do.
Meanwhile,
yes. Meanwhile, back at Judy's, Jay arrives while she finishes dressing in her Alice in Wonderland costume, while Billy watches The Cobweb Hotel, a delightful Fleischer animation that was also featured in last episode's Best Horror Movie Ever Made, Skinamarink. So I'm seeing the pattern.
Ooh.
Everybody's got to use Fleischer animation, and you'll be a success.
I still need to see that.
Oh, it's great.
Skinamarink.
Yeah. Hey, they're both great. Cobweb Hotel and Skinamarink.
Yeah, there you go. If it's got Cobweb Hotel, it's gonna be good.
That's right. Put that on the pull quote.
Just put that in that's your poster. Cobweb Hotel.
I also do love the fudge logs that the mom offers. It's just uncooked brownie batter, but as Billy says, they do indeed look like sun-dried poodle turds. I also love this kid can't let a single sentence go by without roasting him.
Nope. This is also normally I don't like movies with kids in them, and he's not in it a lot, but this kid is just a lot to deal with.
He makes a meal out of it, out of his limited time. So Jay and Judy make a quick exit. Judy is reluctant to return Jay's aggressive affection, but they head to pick up Max and Franny. These are Phil Tanzini and Jill Terashita. Both seemed really delightful in the interviews and commentaries. Phil and Kevin talked about his character being the difficult one of Morris the Explainer, aka the one who effectively delivers the background and lore of the movie. It is not an easy role to do as well, but I think that he is so charming as this character, Max, that like, until they started talking about how he's the one that just like is basically there to deliver exposition, it like didn't click for me that was what was happening.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's a job, and they're pretty good at the times that they do it. Like when they get to the house, it's sort of like, and now he's doing something. Like I'm just, and I love how they do like, oh god, not another story. Yeah. They're very aware at that part of the movie that they've done this like 3 times now, and it's like, okay, he's gonna tell another fucking story.
Judy's like, yeah, I want to hear it. It's like, oh, yeah. All right, Judy. Like, Judy asked.
Looks at the audience. Okay.
They head for Hull House. They come across Stooge and company who have a flat tire. I love this joke of you need a hand, they ask, and then give them a round of applause. That's good old-fashioned comedy, baby.
They're unnecessarily mean in that scene. It's so, like, uncharacteristically, like, man, you guys are assholes.
Hey, I mean, Stooge is a dickhead as far as I'm concerned. I would do the same
thing.
No,
nobody likes Stooge.
Yeah.
Actually, what's funny is nobody really seems to like anybody in this movie.
Understandably, they are like all assholes.
Yep.
But it also does feel like this joke is partially to comfort themselves, as each of the 3 tells Judy that they've been hearing spooky stories about this place since they were kids, culminating in one Halloween night. One of the Hulls went crazy and killed the whole Hull home, including themselves, and nobody could ever figure out who did it because the results were so messy. Now that's a good-ass story.
Yeah. They burn the maid.
That's right. Roast maid. No wonder she couldn't keep it clean.
Roast maid.
They are the first to arrive. I've heard of fashionably late, but poor form for hosts to not even be there. So these kids kill some time wandering around. They discover the underground stream that the wall sits atop, hearing the noise through Max's stethoscope, recalling that it supposedly confines the evil spirits. And in they go. It does look so good with the beams of light and that lovely toxic smoke. They're joined by the rest of the crew shortly after, and indeed +1, as Sal scares the shit out of Jay, leaping from a coffin. Pretty funny. Count Dingleberry, the flaming asshole of Transylvania here.
They give some, like, really mouthful insults.
Yeah.
They're just like, I don't know how they delivered some of these lines. Not because they're terrible lines, it's just like, these are not lines that you would casually say.
These
But they
kids
make
say
them-
them casually,
they make them
baby.
work. They make them
yeah,
work.
yeah. And the party begins. There's plenty of dancing and ogling. A strobe light comes out because Helen's mom used to be an acid head.
That is one of my favorite bits too. It's like, look at the strobe light, and like 8 years later, like every Spencer's Gifts would have them, but like at the time, like, ooh, strobe lights, your mom must have been a stoner.
Yeah, dude. Angela does suggest a party game, though, as the music cuts out, a seance. And, isn't it a little chancy, asks Helen. After all, this is Halloween. There's no telling what will dredge up, especially in this old place. But she's ignored, to their impending peril!
No.
They go looking for a mirror to facilitate it. We see that Raj is a bit of a scaredy cat, but they found a perfect, huge one and gather around it. And it does start to work, with the mirror clouding up. But this draws a holy shit, and people start chattering as that seems to break the spell. But when Helen looks back, she sees it wasn't finished at all, and there's a demon head that throws Helen's own corpse at the invisible barrier between them. And I think that this is really great as like a first scare, because it does have that delay, where you expect it to be like happening right away, and when it pulls back, you like all the kids there are like, oh man, it felt like it was gonna do it. It felt like there was gonna be a scare here. And then for it to sort of give you that delayed gratification is really satisfying as an audience member, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, throughout the entirety of this first section of film, there's some really fun jump scares because the audience is like, it's just literally people jumping out and scaring each other. It's like all the cast is just trying to scare each other, and it kind of levels up as it goes.
Yeah.
With Sal in the coffin, and so when you get to this scene, it is sort of like the audience's expectations are that is this actually going to happen? Is this horror movie going to turn into a horror movie? Or are we just going to be scaring each other? Like, are all these teenagers just going to keep jumping out at each other? And this is the good turning point when you get Helen face to face with her bloated, smashed face corpse that foreshadows her own death later.
Yeah,
and it's so good, and like the makeup is so good, and you
it's
get
disgusting looking.
Yeah, no, it's really like it's a brutal looking. And it's just her head, and it is like one of the most effective scares in the movie, but it's also sort of offset by the demon head that you see for the first time, which is not the best.
I guess actually now that you mention it, it's not perfect,
but it now I can say that because I love this movie. But, and I love that Johnson's also like, this isn't like, I thought it was really good at the time, but I do it differently now. So I do really love that he's also critical of his work, and he also appreciates that like he would do it differently now. There's some really fun ideas in that sculpt. Like you can tell he was really trying to do like something unique. So there's like got horns everywhere. The teeth don't make like they're like. How does its mouth work? Where is it psychic? Is it just like using its telepathy, and its mouth is just sort of like flailing? But it is a really interesting design that if you, I think, spent more time on being able to look at, you might be able to have fun with. But when it just shows up in the mirror, like, what am I looking at?
Yeah, it is. And it's so quick that it kind of doesn't give you enough time to even really be like, oh, that doesn't look perfect, because you're also looking at this smashed up dummy face that does look very good.
Right.
And then before you know it, she's freaking out, and her scattering away drops the mirror and breaks it. So it's gone.
Yeah. And that one does come up with a really good effect of the cast looking in the broken mirror shots, which
That's
is
right.
like was a real pain in the ass to set up, but is really a great shot.
Yeah, it looks amazing. They gather over the shards. All the kids were really impressed as they glued the pieces in place. And Kevin said they asked him, "Have you done this before?" And he responded, "If I'd done this before, I wouldn't be sweating here on the ground, taking half a day to set this up. If it doesn't work, we're screwed."
Yeah, because he didn't get coverage at all, and that's the part of me that's like, oh my god, this guy, like, if that's as somebody who like fancies themselves a filmmaker, don't do it that way. Like, if you're gonna make a movie, get coverage.
Yeah.
But I love that he took a chance, because if it didn't work, he would have, I don't know what he would have done. The whole scene would have been completely fucked. So it kind of had to work.
Yeah,
but not having coverage is like, you're really screwing yourself without shooting coverage.
That almost feels like that sort of folly of youth that you need in sort of taking these chances, because you're like, you think, what if it doesn't work? And then you go, it'll work.
Nah, it's gonna work. It'll work.
Yeah.
It's gotta work.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, the hubris of it. We have no alternative. And it's like, we're not making, like, this isn't Citizen Kane. This isn't, like, Apocalypse Now. This isn't any of those movies that have stood the test of time for cinema. This is Night of the fucking Demons.
Hell yeah.
But it's still a great shot.
That's right. And there are a couple that I would call out as very, very
really
good. Yeah.
And they're imaginative and they're inventive, and that is what makes it a great movie. Maybe that's not Apocalypse Now, but it's still a lot of fun to rewatch.
That's right. Hey, Apocalypse Now doesn't have some awesome demon makeup, so
that's true. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be in the mood to just pop in Apocalypse Now.
There you go. You always feel free to pop in.
It's not the demon.
There we go. There is some banging from the basement. The camera pans down and shows a creepy crematorium with the clanking from within the closed chamber until the demon breaks free. And it flies through the house and possesses Suzanne, who has her mouth open to touch up her makeup. This is accompanied by a chill and the smell of sulfur. Classic demonic indicators, per Ange. And yeah, this is where she specifies, not ghosts. This house is not haunted, it's possessed. Demons have never existed in human form. They are spiritual energy, pure evil. Great setup. Great setup. Some of the crew are more freaked than others. Roger's dad was a preacher, as you say, so he's on his way out. Helen goes too, but Stooge is here to party so they can eat a bowl of fuck. He talked at length.
Yeah, we got to talk about that line.
Talked at length about how this was an homage to John Belushi, who was suspended from Second City for saying that he was going to say, like, he had been saying this in rehearsal, and Second City was like, you can't say this.
You can't do that.
And so what he did was he went up on stage during the live show, and then the first thing he said was, eat a bowl of fuck.
Eat a bowl of fuck.
And he was suspended, of course. And so Stooge was like, we got to do this. Hal begged to have it included. He said, this is my guy. I'm reading this biography. We got to pay homage. And you know what? It's lovely. It did feel like Animal House in that moment.
It's very much he is very much a Belushi character. Like, he's totally inhabiting this, like, just, you don't know what this guy's going to do. You don't know if he's a good guy, if he's a bad guy, he's an asshole.
Right, he's a loose cannon.
I mean, yeah.
And he brings the party vibe.
Very much, yeah. I mean, he's a lot like Suicide from Return. And, like, these characters are a lot like that group of friends. Because it's like, why are these people hanging out?
That's right. They're just kind of like punks.
Each other.
These punks ain't got no family, baby.
But it's great, and it's like, I love it because it's this thing of like, it's good that they don't fit. They don't make any sense, but it doesn't mean that they shouldn't be friends. It shouldn't mean that they wouldn't be at the same party.
Yeah,
like, you shouldn't always look for people who are exactly like you.
Right, and it's classically a small town, right? You work with what you got.
Right.
Max, Franny, Jay, and Judy go to explore the house while Stooge accompanies Suzanne to the bathroom. First, she smooches Angie, though, and the fire rages to life. This kiss was kind of a big deal, especially with the misinformation about AIDS that was happening at the time, so they were very proud about including this. Rightfully so, in my opinion. And the group of four splits up further for a little privacy after another story from Max.
Max the Explainer.
Yeah, that's right. His family was slaughtered on these grounds, although Judy remains reluctant to engage with Jay's amorous inclinations to his frustrations. He says, "Quit the act. I know you've done this before," quite nastily, I might add. He's not a nice guy.
He's really the bad guy of this movie.
Yeah. He says there's all kinds of tales going around about you at school because you and Sal went on one date. And he's like, "Oh, I thought you wanted this as much as I did." Like, he was literally just there to like have sex with her.
Yep.
It's fucked up.
It's not, the demons may be evil, but this guy's a real asshole.
Wow, so true, so true. And he does leave in a huff, and the door is stuck behind him, although it's also just kind of locked. I like that it is kind of just like, did he lock it, or is it like the demons are like, haha, our time is now, and you're stuck here? Outside, though, the gate has vanished, trapping Roger and Helen in here. "We're in hell," says Helen. No wonder it's in her name. And I love the way that she vanishes. There's this really nice push in and then pull out on Roger, and then she's just gone. Yeah. And you're like, I didn't even realize what was happening. And they tricked me. They literally tricked me.
Both Roger and Sal, and honestly, everybody in the movie has some really good face acting. Like, their reactions are really good. And Roger's reactions are just like, what the fuck? The whole movie, like the whole way through, is just like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck?
Yeah, and he's right. He's right
he
to do
sells
it.
He really sells it.
Her name calls him from all around until suddenly it's a demon voice, and he jumps into the car and hides there, although I'm jumping forward a little bit, just coalescing some of these jumping around points. Her corpse ultimately lands on the hood of the car, surprising the crap out of him. It's another great moment where he's like leaning up against the windshield, and like, you're like, I know something's gonna happen because he's leaning up against. It's like pushed in on him, a close up, and he's leaning up against this. And they do such a great job of keeping you on tenterhooks, but not too long. They deliver on it quickly enough to make it still feel like you're getting that delicious jump, you know?
And it's that great bloated face, horrible the face that you saw earlier that was so effective in the mirror. And it's like, oh, there it is.
She's back.
It's happened. It's happened.
Yeah. Suzanne is going through it in the mirror, meanwhile. Her face is warping, and you hear it shatter. But she's gone, too, when Stooge breaks down the door to see what happened. Back in the main area, the demon in Angie's body does a lot of touching, sort of getting used to the body, as we talked about. It does eventually erupt in dance as the stereo starts playing by itself. This is Bauhaus's Stigmata Martyr, because, of course, the demons love Bauhaus. Everyone knows this. It does look great. Especially when, as Kevin said, on a big shoot, you'd spend 3 days on this dance number. We had to shoot it in 4 hours and then do 2 more scenes.
It is one of the most effective scenes in the movie. Like, honestly, I think without that scene and without the lip sync scene, like, this wouldn't... I mean, the effects definitely sell it, but this scene is another character moment for Angela that, like, is absolutely essential to the movie being as memorable as it is. And honestly, the strobe light really is a big part of that.
Definitely.
As much as I'm laughing about the fact that the strobe light, it's like made to be like this big thing. And it's like that strobing effect is really also a seizure warning.
Oh, yeah.
Like a little bit of an epilepsy warning on that. Because if you can't handle strobing effect, you do not want to watch that scene. But they really play with the strobing to great effect.
Yeah, it's mysterious, it's sexy. You question if it's even happening at first because of the strobe, the way that she's bouncing around. It makes you sort of wonder what's happening. That
bounce around part is just so good. Yeah. Where it's like you're getting effect because it's sort of like this demonic striptease, and it's like, oh, is this supposed to be an erotic sort of thing? But it's like, nope. She's actually jumping around the room. And then, and it doesn't really come to any sort of like, it just sort of ends.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have a really horrific payoff that you were expecting. So you're like, oh, things are okay. And then.
Yeah, Sal is freaked out, but just like wanders off. And so Stooge comes back just in time to dance with her a little bit. and she asks him to kiss her, and when he does, she bites off his gall-darn tongue.
And they're playing like this, like really moody 80s, and I don't remember the track, but it's a very like sweet sounding 80s love song.
Yeah, it's working. I also love he talked about his earring actually got ripped out of his ear after catching on her wedding dress. Oh, that sounds so painful.
And then he had to have him shove it back in,
right? Because
he didn't want continuity error.
I'm not having an earring.
Yeah. I'm gonna go I'm not gonna spend the rest of my life without that earring.
Yep.
Gotta have continuity, and that is a commitment to the role.
That's
to
right.
The film.
That's right. Also, this tongue bite is pretty gruesome. It was one of the effects that got them some flack from the MPAA. Another I'll mention when it comes up. But yeah, this was the main one. Sal's wandering takes him to Suzanne, who's sitting in a closet, just drawing the heart on her face in lipstick. Shit, not you too, he groans. I love that he's just like, not even
very
scared.
Practical about it. He's like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah, you and your friend Ange are a little too weirdo for me. I live in a nice house with plastic slipcovers from the furniture. And he just wanders away again. He's like, fuck this. I love Sal. He cracks me up.
I would watch a Sal spinoff, honestly. Yeah. If it was just Sal, just not even fighting demons, just hanging out.
Yeah. Just like commenting on the demons being there.
It's a fucking oh, shit, Angela.
This is when, left to her own devices, Suzanne tears open her dress and does slowly draw a line that spirals down around her nipple, which she then shoves the lipstick into. It vanishes completely. It does look really good because there's no cut that would be like, here's where it becomes a fake chest. You just push in on it slowly the whole time, so you're pretty unprepared for when it happens. And like we said, you can, in this new age of high fidelity, see the slot if you're looking for it. But really, if you're like just absorbed in the effect, which you should be, it's very, very incredible. Like, it looks so good. It's totally realistic as far as I'm concerned.
And it, like they talk about the genesis of that effect of being the gun from Videodrome,
right?
And I love that scene, but this actually ages better than that because of the way it's shot, and it's just that single shot.
Yeah.
And it's just a like, there's not as much like goop on it. Like the Videodrome thing, like it's really visceral and effective, and it's a great scene, but you can, like the effect on it isn't quite as seamless.
Yeah.
And with the way that it's shot, it's just this slow push in, and you can't see the seam where the fake body comes into her neck, and her arms are just positioned really perfectly. And it's like I said, if the quality was a little bit more degraded, there's a little bit higher grain, you wouldn't be able to tell that it was a gelatin chest.
Not
there.
at all.
But even in HD, it's like they did an amazing job sculpting and with the makeup on it, because it looks, the flesh tones on it are perfect.
Yeah, blended incredibly.
Yeah, it's really good, and it's shot really well too. And that's the thing. They knew that they couldn't have a cut, because as soon as you cut, they're like, oh well, that's where the effect is.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Jay, though, finds her and says, hey, that's not a bad paint job, but it needs a little touching up. Jay, this guy.
Yeah, I was like, the big holy shit moment, and then Jay comes in, nice. And that's what this whole movie is.
Yeah, pretty much. She brings him down to her level, gets atop him, and starts to freak out. Stop looking at me, she says, revealing her face has become demonic and gouges out his damn eyes. The articulated head really adds to it. The screaming mouth, the furrowing brows. Ugh, gross.
The cherry tomatoes.
Yeah.
They
popped right out.
Yeah, and they use. That's what I love. The inventiveness of using cherry tomatoes for eyes for that, and it's so good.
Yep, it really is. Sal is just bouncing around getting freaked out. This time, Angela is mask off at this point. She's burned the crap out of her hands, which she shows him them aflame and then just chases him down the hall. Franny and Max are getting it on in a coffin. They're excited to check this off their bucket list. Lucky for them, considering how little time they have left. I also like that Franny's I don't bend that way sort of foreshadows her impending death, which is fun.
This movie is really good at foreshadowing things. It's a lot of fun with that.
It is. But we find out Stooge has been possessed now too, and he completely turns her head around, then slams the coffin on Max several times to sever his arm. Amelia said that they went through the McDonald's drive-thru with his arm like that, which I thought was very funny.
So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that, like, I think they commented, like, you couldn't do that now. And, like, yeah, you definitely couldn't do that now. It's really funny. I feel really bad for whoever had but it's really funny.
It is. It is funny. Sal and Roger meet up, then they also find and free Judy, but Angela's hot on their trail, beckoning them and floating down the hall on what is actually just roller skates and a push. But when they duck into a room, they find Suzanne with the now dead Jay. How about an orgy, she asks saucily before turning into a demon and attacking. And Sal holds her off just long enough to give Judy time to run, but is knocked right out the dang window himself. And the doors all slam shut, and the lights go out, leaving Judy only one way to go, into the room with Franny and Max. His severed arm freaks her out normally, but then also attacks her by grabbing her ankle. So funny when she just does this, like, swift kick, which is just like a funny action. Yeah. But then on top of that, this gelatin arm is heavy as hell, and Steve is worried about it getting damaged, so he's like, I'm gonna catch it. And then it just hit him square in the chest and knocked him on his ass while they're filming this. Right off camera, so that's also funny to imagine.
It did look like a real arm. Got weight to it.
It's good. I also love them just emerging and doing like classic zombie groans and gropes. They're just like, the demons ran out of personalities for him and said, "Fuck it, we're going classic."
And that arm gag. That's one of those things, like the arm gag. I can't think of what else to call it. That scene was one of the things that like really stuck in my mind as a kid because it's so like just brutal, like the brutality. Because it's Stooge is just this big dude, and he just keeps mashing the coffin lid shut on the guy's arm, and he's screaming. Like everybody sells it really good. And then the effect when he gets out of the coffin when he's possessed, you see his stump, and it's such a good makeup. Yeah. And then when you see him again later, like they do a really excellent job blending him. And I'm forgetting everybody's name, but the woman that he's in the coffin with, like her head is on backwards for the rest of the shoot.
Great, just a nice touch.
Yeah.
Judy runs back out. She's chased around the house a bit, spotting the still living Roger, who's also having his own chase. Sal, it turns out, is still alive, having fallen from the window down an air shaft, and he's climbing out on a water pipe. And Judy winds up chased to the roof, while Roger is below her on the ground. He encourages her to jump to him, especially when Angela appears, but luckily so does Sal, who wrestles her, but the kerfuffle is enough to knock Judy over, who's now clinging to the ledge. And I love this sick flip that Angela and Sal do off the roof.
So good.
They land hard, too, especially Sal, who has a stake through the chest.
No.
Yeah, big rip to Sal.
Well, and then that comes with one of the best, cheesiest parts of the movie, which is it pans from his corpse that's impaled on this stake up to his own tombstone.
Bespoke.
That says, "Here lies Sal Romero," and they had to give him a name. The props department came to Kevin Tenney, and it's like, "What's Sal's last name for his tombstone?" It's like, "Well, we're Romero after George," and so they name him Sal Romero, and it's just born. I forget what day, and then it's died today or tonight.
Tonight, so fucking funny. That is the funniest thing I can imagine.
It is just like if you had any question to how serious this movie takes itself, it's on that fucking tombstone, and you can't not love that because it's like, okay, everybody's really doing their best with it, but that tombstone, it's just like it just takes all the wind out of the sail.
It's so funny.
It's so funny.
Yes.
Because you cannot frame the mood of this thing. And one thing we haven't mentioned is that Judy is wearing Alice in Wonderland outfit.
Right.
And it speaks to the level of weirdness throughout and the surrealistic nature that they put her in this outfit. One, because initially she was supposed to be Red Riding Hood, but they didn't want her to look demonic. And because red means demon.
When In one of the first commentaries, Kevin says the way that he phrases it is like, because who else has a red cape? Satan. And like,
right, and it's like, Jesus, man, that's a hell of a stretch. Like, okay. But I respect the logic.
Sure,
you
sure.
can't really argue with that. But what is, I mean, I would, I'm sure if I were on set with that, I'm like, come on, dude, you got to give me something other than that. But the brilliance of the alternative is, well, put her in an Alice in Wonderland outfit, then anything goes.
Yeah.
Whatever you do in the movie, the logic doesn't have to make sense. So that logic actually is sound. So anything you can put Sal's tombstone in there, and it fucking works, and that's brilliant.
Absolutely.
Even if it is just sidestepping Satan's cloak.
And we should all try and sidestep Satan's cloak, as far as I'm concerned.
Nobody wants to dress up like Satan.
Right. He hates that. He says one of us has to go home and change, and it's not going to be me.
I know what I'm wearing to the party.
Yeah. This is like my uniform. You're biting my style.
You're just cosplaying evil.
Yeah. Judy does have to face her fear. She works her way over to fall atop Roger. No time to relax, however, as Stooge drops down next to them, and as they flee, it does turn out Angela's fine. Sal wanted to leave, but decided to stick around, she says, and yeah, that leads to the tombstone. Roger and Judy run back inside and down to the crematorium, where they lock themselves in. And there's a really nice moment where they sort of like laugh in relief, and it turns into Roger weeping while she comforts him.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good. That laugh cry bit is just like, and I keep referencing Return of the Living Dead, but like there's these character moments where there's like that moment of, oh God, what are we gonna do? And that's that when the two characters are in the attic. And this is sort of that, but it's with a, like when your adrenaline has been jacked for so long and your body doesn't know how to react, and you don't really get that much in horror movies that are a little bit more, like trying to set a specific tone. It's like, no, it's got to be one thing. It's got to be one thing. It's like, no, they're gonna laugh because they don't know what else to do.
Yeah,
like,
that's right. It's absurd.
It's so insane.
Yeah, it is an absurd situation that they find themselves in, no doubt. And she almost kind of goes crazy a little bit. She like thinks the oven door is a way out.
So good, and it's like, oh, because you don't really know if it is. Like clearly, you're going into the basement. It's like, oh, what is this? Like, probably not a way out. But she's really committed to it being a way out. She's
desperate.
Really, like, this is a way out. The reaction she has is so sad.
I love it. I also love, one of my favorite shots is that shot from within the oven looking out. It goes so deep. They talked about adjusting that the lens length to provide some depth to the house. And here in this moment where you can look all the way back and see Roger against the door, and there's such a sense of depth in that shot, it really just makes the camera work stand out in a way that is like, wow, they did such a great job of distinguishing this from other low-budget movies, and even just in like terms of putting some effort into that instead of just saying lockdown shot, here it is, regular standard camera length, or lens length. I think that they just do such a great job with it.
Yeah.
But she obviously finds Bone and Ash, and the demons are banging at the door. Yeah, so things are looking grim. But she realizes we just need to survive until dawn because it's Halloween, a special night of evil when all things unclean are free to roam among us. So they think hard and remember a lighter she has in her pockets. She turns the crematorium pipe into a flamethrower, fights the demons off. It's a very badass moment. I like it a lot.
Roger goes catatonic.
Yeah, he's not having it. Although things aren't done, because as he does finally get brought back in to turn off the valve, a skeleton hand emerges from the chamber, grabs him, sends him scampering from the room once more. Judy does follow him with the demons in hot pursuit. Pun not intended until this very moment when I realized that it was.
Definite. Which also, the fire effects for a low budget. That's something. There's a moment earlier on where Angela's got her hands in the fire, and it's this great gag of, I was just warming my hands in the fire. And she just turns around and her hands are totally on fire. And this scene where Judy is just torching them He just full engulfed the Stooge and Angela, fully engulfed in flames.
Yeah.
And that is something that, like, again, on a low budget horror, like, you just don't see that.
Definitely. Jay has joined things, as have Helen and Sal. Don't you like your blind date? Says Angela about Jay. But we did talk about how difficult it is to balance that tone with the jokes and stuff. But I find it interesting that they're like, okay, we can have one joke here, but you can see Sal look down at the stake in him, and he doesn't say anything. But there was a moment where he was going to make a quip.
Yeah.
And they cut it for tone, letting Angela handle that and not wanting to have so many jokes here as it climaxes. The line that they shot was, "Is that a stake in my heart, or am I just happy to see you?" Although they also consider
honestly is pretty on par for Sal's character.
I like it.
But
I do like it.
I appreciate that they basically made Angela the crypt keeper. So, like, okay, all of the weird schlock is gonna come out of Angela. Like, as far as the punny horror humor.
Yeah. Once he's done, done. He's done. They did also consider "I Really Fell for You" in a big way, which not quite as good as the "Stake in My Heart" one, in my opinion. Also kind of funny with Franny and Max that they're kind of modest demons, as it was pointed out, in that they put their clothes back on.
It's like the whole movie, they're like, all right, let's find excuses for the girls to get naked. Let's have these like really gratuitous shots of all of them.
Yeah.
And then for some reason at the end, they're like, all right, well, put everybody's clothes back on.
Well, the reason is she had to walk backwards.
I was gonna say, like, I just remember the reason.
So it was necessary, but it is funny that they're like, "Ah, shit, we finally backed ourselves into a corner with this." Roger is so desperate to get out that he leaps through a boarded up window, which is kind of funny, but it works.
Not only, he doesn't just leap, he fucking flips. That is like one of the best. And the stunt jump, and the stunt falls in this movie are incredible. The part where Sal and Angela go over, they're landing on cardboard boxes because there wasn't enough room to put an air mattress down from the fall on. So they had like this really tiny spot with just covered in cardboard boxes to land on. So like the stunt jumpers, like the stunt people just did a hell of a job. But that jump that Roger does through the window is like comically over the top. He's like a Power Ranger through the window.
Hell yeah, he is. Hell yeah.
So good. And it's just great because Judy just is like watching him go. It's like, oh.
Oh, Roger.
Okay. He's like, fuck this shit. I'm getting out of here.
He really is. He makes straight for the wall.
Just beelines for it.
Climbs a damn barbed wire strip to get the hell out of there. Judy tries to follow, but the pain and going second leaves enough time for Angela to grab her. Roger is fully over the wall as the rest of the demons grab her, and it looks like the end. But the sound is too much for him. He comes back, he grabs her hand, he pulls her up and over. Climb, girl, climb! And they did it. Great job, Roger. Great job, Judy. The demons collapse in pain as a cloud of smoke rolls in, and the actual demon head emerges over the house, screams in rage and pain.
Rises.
Yes, and it eventually vanishes with the light breaking. He was very proud about telling the story of how they traded a stock image for this other stock image of sunrise, although it was actually sunset, and they had to play it in reverse. Mm-hmm. So a lot of detail about that one stock image that he provided in the commentary, but the two of them walk home. Things are quote-unquote back to normal, with the old man we saw initially grousing about them rotting in hell for being out all night. And he heads inside, eats some pie his wife made. She says, "Oh, by the way, I made this with leftover apples from last night." And whole razor blades rip from his throat as she looks on smiling. "Happy Halloween, dear," she says to him. And I say, this is an object and abject lesson in chewing. This is the other effect that I mentioned. The MPAA had them cut the razor blades emerging from the throat, but they talked a lot about how that kind of removed the fantasy and made it way more upsetting to just have like the ending be these grotesque sounds of razors
gurgling
emerging.
Noises. They're just like,
yeah. I think he's right that they made it worse.
The effect is really a gruesome, brilliant effect, and they talk about how like why are his veins like bulging out, but it is such a good.
Because
effect.
it
Like
looks
the
good.
the razors just like they just fly out of it. Like it's like he ate one of the phantasm balls. It's
That's a really
just
good way to put it. I was thinking it was like Alien with
plowing
like the
it.
chest burster coming out his neck, but
But it's just like he's got this living metal
yeah,
fucking razor blade coming
yeah,
out of him. But it's so good. Um,
absolutely.
and it, in the grand scheme of things, has nothing to do with the story other than to introduce that like Judy is a really kind person and was trying to help this old man up after Sal scared him, and it sets up that her character as being a genuinely nice person, and then it just sort of bookends the movie with like, well, he got his too.
Yeah, that's right. And he certainly did. And now, Jonathan, we've reached the part of the episode where we sum up why this is not just a good horror movie, but is in fact the best horror movie ever made. And I'm going to let you start.
Oh God, that's the thing. Having rewatched it today, I would be hard pressed to be able to say it's the best horror movie ever made. But I will try to allow my younger self to make that case because it's everything a young person could want in a horror movie. If you have never seen any other horror movie before, then it's got everything. It's got gratuitous nudity, gratuitous violence, sex, or the promise of sex. And the promise of sex met with a grisly death every time. And just ridiculous one-liners, sour balls.
Bodacious boobies.
A very really awkward child acting, delivering the most uncomfortable lines to his sister, and it's stuff that like it's a movie that is very much of its time, but is also timeless, and it's a movie that is a lot of artists and a lot of creators doing their best with what they have and trying to do more with what they don't have. And it has longevity that other movies don't, that have more to work with, that squander it in some ways. And like the higher the 8, the 10, the 20K picture increases on this, you're still going to get a really creepy fucking house that no other movie has. And you're going to have a bunch of really committed creators that no other movie has. And it's a party movie. And it's a movie that really is served best at a party.
There you go. To me, this is the best horror movie ever made because I think that it can really be summed up by a quote that Kevin said that I found really compelling, where he said, "I'm not going to use campy as an excuse to not try and scare you."
Yeah.
And I think that is exactly what this movie is that it is funny and goofy and it is not taking itself too seriously. But at the same time, it is taking the parts of itself seriously that need to be taken seriously. And that is the effects, the commitment by the characters or by the actors to playing those characters, the vision of the director to not just have lockdown shots or master close, but to in fact really play with the emotion and play with the movement of the camera, to have this incredible setting. I think that they just are doing so much with so little. And it's at a time that is, I've talked about this before, but there are these moments in both animation and physical, like practical effects, where the change from animation to digital, like hand-drawn animation to digital, and the change from practical effects to computer graphics, there's sort of a moment right before that watershed moment, right, where people have had this other technology for long enough that they are developing it into something really interesting, and it is sort of had the time to grow and to build upon itself, and to have masters emerge who are not just having to discover what makes an interesting special effect, but to use these foundations that have been scaring us since the 70s, these delicious practical effects, to build on them in a way that, makes them so incredible and visceral. The moments where it is burn makeup, or the moments where the razor blades come out of this guy's throat, and you just go like, wow, this really could not have been made at another time.
Yeah.
because it needed to have the people who had developed practical effects to a point that it was feasible, but also not have the like easy way out of having like a computer to do it on. And I think that is kind of what makes this so special, is that it came out at the right time to have the low budget not necessarily stand in its way so much. And I think that, it just does an amazing job. Kevin Tenney does such a good job of making this a cohesive experience when it very much could have been kind of all over the place. You know, we're following so many characters, but he does a great job with it, and it all feels good, and it's the best damn horror movie ever made.
Yeah, and you know, I feel like I also got to mention that Steve Johnson didn't take a paycheck for this movie. He put all of what he got into the effects, which is, you know, also it's like there's so many reasons why you can't make a movie like this now, and not in the least of which is like people deserve to get paid.
Right.
And I mean, and that's not to say that somebody shouldn't get paid for their work, but it's something that when you're young and you are on enough drugs to not know any better, and you just have the tenacity and you like the fire and drive and feel like you're invincible, like, and he just needed to prove himself.
Yeah.
And that is something like you couldn't get Night of the Demons without getting Ghostbusters, and you couldn't have it without the other bigger budget movies that Johnson learned from.
Right.
And he knew that he could make it as best as he could if he put all of the money into that. And there is something to be said for that. Like that, like I will, I don't shut up well. So it's one of those things, like I'll keep talking. And it is that the rolling answer of why I do think this is the best horror movie ever is largely in part of the people that worked on it. No small part of Steve Johnson's effects work and everybody else, Kevin Tenney, and the script also.
Gotta shout out Joe. Joe Augustin, Philly boy. I gotta shout him out.
And you know, I mean, the fact that like you know that like these movies are exhausting to work on, and it's a testament to the fact that like they, you know, still like 20, 30, 40 years later into the future, like as long as people are around, they're going, like as long as the cast and crew is around in some part, there's going to be fans for them.
Yeah.
And I also have to give a shout out to Dark Delicacies, where I got my signed Blu-ray from.
Hell yeah.
And I've never actually been there, but they host some fantastic cast reunions, and they're a bookstore out in Burbank. And I got the score on vinyl signed by a bunch of the cast and crew. I have that. I have when I did get to see Night of the Demons of Theater, I have the film stub signed by Linnea.
Hell yeah.
And it is one of those movies that is one of the most rewarding movies to be a fan of.
Hell yeah.
Because the people involved in it are just a lot of fun, and they really appreciate their position in the fandom. And fandom is a tough thing these days.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that just based on like you said, sort of it not being the most popular thing, and it has a little bit of like a nice feeling of like, well, not everybody likes it, that this is our thing. Like, this is...
you're still kind of the underdog. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like Return of the Living Dead is like almost universally loved. Like if you're a horror fan, it's like, yeah, like Return of the Living Dead, it's fucking great. Like that would have been the movie that I picked. It's the easy one. I don't have to defend anything in that movie. This is special to me because it's one of the first horror movies that I saw, and there's part of me that's always going to be this haunted house person. Like I will always have this part of me that's jump scare movie. It's just about getting somebody in a room and jumping out from behind a curtain. Like it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Like, don't overthink it. And fill it with smoke, throw a strobe light in there, dance crazy, and you're good.
That's right.
But it's, you know, like that sounds like it's a lot easier than it is, because it's not actually that easy.
Yeah.
Because if you don't dress up in the same way that Angela does, if you don't commit to the bit, it is actually a lot harder than it looks. And that's the part where it's like, don't overthink it, but also, don't fuck up.
That's right. I couldn't have put it better myself, Jonathan. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. This was an absolute blast. Please tell the people where they can find your work, where they can check it out. It is great, and I highly encourage people to do so.
Thank you. I have been taking time off social media lately. I'll be back at some point. JonathanLamantia.com. I'm sure that you can find the spelling for that on your site.
Look at your phone.
But yeah.
It'll say it right there.
Name. Sorry. There's a lot of letters in there. But yeah, hopefully folks like this. I really want to talk about the other movie. I'm not going to spoil the other movie, but
that's right. We already have a return ep picked out for Jonathan's triumphant return. So
if this one goes well.
Well, we're at the end. I'm thinking it went well. Hopefully you don't disagree. But as far as my plugs, people can find me on Instagram at LittleHorrorPHL. I'm also on Letterboxd there if people are interested in seeing what I'm watching. If you want to go and see, wow, George watched Night of the Demons 5 times recently. He must be doing an episode on that. That's where you'll find out a little sneak peek in advance. I also want to encourage people to go and check out the back catalog. Lots of really awesome guests from all over the world, not just awesome artists, of which we have had many, not just Jonathan, but Harry Nordlinger was just on to talk Skinamarink. Branson Reese has been on twice to talk about the best animated horror shorts from 1929 to 1953 and Q the Winged Serpent. So two amazing topics. Yeah. Corinne Halbert talking about Possession, another amazing one. Yeah. Pete Fakey talking about The Curious Dr. Hump. A.T. Pratt talking about Eraserhead and doing a choose your own adventure book. So if you're looking for other artists, you got plenty. But if you're into like comedy, we got Hayes Davenport talking about Under the Silver Lake. We got Nick Weiger talking about Ninja Scroll. We got John Gabris talking about Cat's Eye. All kinds of great guests in the back catalog. Take a look. Find a movie you love. Find a guest you love. You're sure to find something. And everyone is the best horror movie ever made as far as I'm concerned. So definitely check that out. Follow along on Instagram and Letterboxd. And I'll see you all at the movies. Bye.
Bye.